Hey guys, today I am back with another 5 tips for managing anxiety. I've already done a video like this sharing 5 tips that I find helpful in the moment when you're experiencing or when I'm experiencing really bad anxiety. I'm not talking about preventing anxiety in the first place or dealing with panic attacks, like when you have a panic attack coming on, although some of these tips may be helpful. I'm just talking about generally when you have that horrible anxious feeling for no reason, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. Last week, for some reason, I had the worst anxiety. It was absolutely awful. I haven't had anxiety like that in a really long time, and I was kind of verging on panic attack, but I was managing it using some of the tips that I've shared in my last video and using the tips that I'm going to share today. I kind of had to pull out all the resources and just find something that worked because it was so uncomfortable. So the first tip I'll share is similar to one that I shared in my last video. In the last video I talked about music and reading to distract you from those uncomfortable feelings of anxiety, but I was experiencing it so badly this time that I couldn't really concentrate to read, and I found that watching TV really helps. So that is my first tip. Just watch something on TV or on YouTube, preferably on TV and not really a social media thing, because that can, for me anyway, sometimes feed into the anxiety. But just sitting down and watching TV and getting immersed in a show that I didn't have to concentrate too hard on, or you know, when you're reading a book you kind of need to be uninterrupted and you need to be able to focus on the words and imagine what's happening in the story. And like I said, that was just too much for me last week. But when it's all being presented to you visually and just kind of fed to you through a TV show or a movie, I found that really helpful and a really relaxing way of escaping and switching my mind off for a while, which distracted me from feeling those feelings of anxiety. My second tip is a technique that I find really helpful when I'm feeling anxious, and it is basically pretend you are watching yourself, whether you are pretending that you're watching yourself in a movie, or I kind of pretend that this is gonna sound weird, that I'm kind of above the room and that there's no roof or ceiling. It's kind of like a doll's house that you look down into, and that I'm just watching myself. It sounds really weird, but it really helps. When you look at other people living their lives, you don't know what they're experiencing. You don't know if they're feeling anxious, if they're feeling happy, if they're excited about something, if they're plotting evil thoughts. You just see people living their lives, and that is it. And when you do the same to yourself, you pretend that you're watching yourself live your life, then it can detach you from those emotions that you're experiencing. I know this is going to be weird, but I get anxiety when I go to church sometimes. And if I pretend that I'm kind of looking down into the church, oh, there's Jen Morris and she's sitting with her family in church, and it is what it is. Like, there's nothing there to feel anxious about. And when you're experiencing anxiety, very often there's nothing that you're anxious about particularly. They're just horrible feelings of anxiety. It's just, there's no reason for it. Sometimes there's a reason for it, but if you have just general anxiety that plagues you, there's often no reason for it. And so when you detach and you watch yourself, like as if you're looking through a window, oh, there's Jen, she's preparing dinner for her family in her kitchen, it takes you away from those emotions that you're experiencing in the moment. And it's something to distract you as well. Like you have to use your imagination to picture how you would look from the outside, or as if you're watching yourself. It sounds really weird, but I promise you it works. So give it a try. If you try this technique and it helps you, please let me know, because then I don't feel like I'm crazy. My next tip is to focus on gratitude. Whether you pray and do a prayer of thanksgiving, or if you just want to, in your mind, list what you're grateful for, or actually sit and write it down, it really helps to take away from those anxious feelings, to actually look at your life and look at everything you have and be grateful for it. You know, I can sit there and list, I have a family, I have a home, I get to live in New Zealand, my health is so much more recovered, I have a garden, whatever. Like, you can list all of the things that you are blessed with and feel grateful for it. And it's hard to kind of concentrate on that and feel grateful and feel anxious at the same time. My next tip might not be a popular one, but it is to exercise. And I know we all hear this, you need to exercise, it's really good for your body, it's really good for your brain and for your mental health. I used to exercise every single day. I was in such a good habit. when we lived up in Auckland, I exercised every single day. I didn't even take a day off because I didn't want to miss out. I felt so good just exercising daily, and it was part of my routine. It was just like who I was. I was this person who exercised every day. And then we moved to Taranaki, and I just got out of the habit. Well, initially I was spending my energy unpacking and sorting out the house, and I didn't kind of have energy to do that and go and exercise as well. Or a lot of the time we're doing DIY, or I'm working in the garden, and so I wasn't going walking like I used to. And the exercise has kind of tailed off more and more and more, and I was exercising a few times a week, and now it's not all that often, I have to be honest. And when I was so uncomfortable with anxiety last week and really struggling with it, I was like, I cannot complain about my mental health if I'm not doing everything I can to help it. So I'm back in the habit of exercising every single day, because it just really helps. When you're feeling anxious, it can trigger those fight or flight kind of hormones and feelings, and to get out there and move your body. You don't have to do anything violent, or like, you know, don't go run 10 kilometers. Just going for a walk, like a good brisk walk where you're moving your body, can help deal with all of those kind of hormones that are happening in your body, the cortisol and whatever. You can deal with those feelings of stress and just work it through your body, and it really helps. It may only help in the moment. When I was really bad last week and I went for a walk, I was like, I am gonna walk, and I'm gonna walk hard until I get those endorphins. Like, I was determined to feel better, and I did. At one point in my walk I was like, yes, I feel so good right now, like there it is. And you know, I had my music going and really going for it. Like, I wasn't just strolling along, I was like working for a high, or like working to feel better. And I did. I felt great in the moment, and I came home and, like, you know, got showered and changed, whatever, and within an hour I was back to feeling super anxious. But I know that the effects of exercise on your brain, I've like read a whole book about it, it's so interesting. Those effects can last for up to 48 hours afterwards. And even if you only feel good in the moment, don't you want to feel good for a moment? So it's really worth moving your body, getting some exercise going, because I find it helps. And then the last tip I wanted to share is be careful of your self-talk. I've kind of mentioned this briefly in a previous video, I don't even know which one, but it's something I'm passionate about because it changes how you feel. I feel things so intensely, I'm very emotional, I experience everything emotionally, and I felt powerless about that in my life. I just felt like you feel how you feel, you can't help how you feel, and I just didn't know how to change how I felt and how I feel everything so intensely. And then one day I was watching Dr. Phil, because love me some Dr. Phil, and he said the things you say to yourself can affect how you feel, or something along those lines, something about what you say to yourself can change how you feel. And I was like, wait, what? I have some control over how I feel, and it is so true. How you speak to yourself in your head and your internal dialogue can dictate how you feel. Now, when you're experiencing massive anxiety like I was, you can't just tell yourself, oh, I feel great, that's not how it works. But you can change how you observe what you're feeling. So I found that in my head I was going, I feel so bad, this is awful, I can't cope with this, I'm really struggling, I'm so uncomfortable. And when you're saying that to yourself, it kind of creates a downward spiral, it perpetuates what you're feeling. So I realized what I was doing, and I changed what I said in my head, and I told myself, this is really uncomfortable, but you're okay, you are safe, this will pass, this feeling won't last, you will feel better soon, it may take a while, but you're going to feel better. Yes, it's really uncomfortable, but you are coping, you're managing through it. And just talking to yourself like that and being positive and being supportive can really make a difference. I felt an almost instant difference when I changed my internal dialogue. So I really urge you to be aware of what you're saying to yourself when you're feeling anxious, and change that to a supportive and optimistic internal dialogue, and it will change how you feel. I really hope that some of these tips were helpful to you if you experience anxiety. I have linked my previous video down below, and I linked it in the card in the beginning of this video, so go and check that out, and hopefully these 10 tips together will give you some tools in your toolbox for dealing with anxious feelings. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.